The moment he entered, the room seemed to shrink. No one knew his real name, but in Little Tokyo, the mere sound of his footsteps was enough to make everyone hold their breath. Kato Yamazaki, the Yakuza boss from Osaka, the man they called the Silent Demon. Hanabira was a restaurant for the elite, the kind of establishment where even the clink of a knife was as carefully practiced as an art. But tonight, when the back door swung open, the only sound that remained was the ragged beating of every heart inside. Neon light from First Street sliced across the polished floor, gliding over his mirror-shine shoes before settling on his unreadable face. 2 bodyguards led the way, their hands hovering near their jackets. A silent warning that one wrong move could erase you from existence. Kato didn't look at anyone. He walked straight to the VIP table, sat down, unlocked his phone, and spoke. His voice was deep, flat, devoid of emotion. Mizu Kadisai. Just 2 words, but they fell like blades. Andre, the Latino floor manager, swallowed hard. Sweat beaded along his collar. He'd dealt with difficult customers before, but never one who could transform a crowded room into a tomb. A waiter tried, "Sir, English," and the instant the words left his mouth, the entire room froze. A wine glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered. The sharp crack of glass sounded like a warning. Kato looked up. His eyes were dark, bottomless, like a still storm. He repeated, softer this time, yet sharper than before, "Mizu Kadasai." No one answered. At the far end of the room, behind the counter, a young black woman stood perfectly still. Naomi Ellis, 27, night shift waitress, working to pay for her mother's hospital bills. Nobody remembered when she'd started at Hanabira. She'd always just been there, like part of the furniture. Naomi understood every word the man had said. She'd learned Japanese from her late friend, Aiko, who once told her, "Language is the soul of respect." Now she looked around. Everyone was terrified, silent, worshipping fear as if it were oxygen. Naomi bit her lip. She knew exactly what he'd said, and she knew if she stepped forward now, nothing in her life would ever be the same. People often say that some moments are so small you don't realize they're changing everything. She lifted a tray, set a glass of water on it, and began to walk toward him. The neon light climbed her face, then caught his. 2 worlds colliding in midair. "Here's your water," she said softly, then added in perfect Japanese, "Omizu disu." A ripple of whispers shot through the room like static. Kato's gaze rose to meet hers, and for the briefest heartbeat, the demon looked as if someone had just spoken to his soul. If you're holding your breath right now, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell because this is only the beginning of the storm. Naomi Ellis had learned how to disappear long before she learned how to speak Japanese. Every shift at Hanabira was a quiet rehearsal in invisibility. Her posture straight, her eyes down, her words measured to the smallest syllable. When rich customers snapped their fingers, she moved like air. When they complained, she smiled like she'd been trained to since childhood. Calm, contained, unshakable. People remembered her tray, never her face. But tonight, something inside her refused to stay small. The way Kato Yamazaki's words rolled across the room, untranslated, unclaimed, felt like a secret only she was meant to hear. Mizu Kadasai. She'd learned that phrase years ago from Aiko Tanaka, her college roommate who had a laugh that could slice through sorrow. Aiko had said it 100 times during late-night ramen runs. "Naomi, water connects us. No matter the language, we all need it." And then one rainy night, Aiko was gone, hit by a drunk driver on Western Avenue. Naomi had never used those words again. Now, under the hum of neon and fear, they came rushing back. She saw Aiko's handwriting in the old notebook she still kept folded inside her apron. The little sketches of kanji, the phonetic notes scribbled beside them, the voice that once teased her, "You're better at my language than I am at yours." Andre's eyes darted toward her from across the room, silently begging her to stay put. Every muscle in his face said, "Don't you dare." But Naomi's pulse was already sinking to the rhythm of something larger than fear, something like purpose. She lifted her head. looked straight at the man everyone else avoided, and whispered just loud enough for the closest server to hear. He asked for water. The sentence hit the room like a gunshot muffled in velvet. Heads turned. A chef stopped mid-slice. Someone dropped a fork. Even the air conditioning seemed to hold its breath. Andre mouthed, "You speak Japanese?" But she didn't answer. She just nodded once, quiet and sure. Across the dining room, Kato's eyes flickered. He didn't smile, but something in his stillness shifted, like a predator noticing a shape it couldn't quite define. For the first time all night, the silence didn't belong to him. It belonged to her. And just like that, the invisible waitress became the only person in the building who spoke the language of the demon. The sound that broke the silence wasn't her voice. It was the soft slide of a chair across marble. "Sit." The command was quiet, but it hit like thunder. Every head in the restaurant turned. Even the air between them seemed to tighten. Naomi froze mid-step, her tray still trembling in her hands. She looked at him, really looked at him. Kato Yamazaki, the man who could silence a room with a glance, now watched her with the sharp focus of a sniper and the calm of a monk. "Sir, I'm working," she said softly. "Sit," he repeated, his eyes never leaving hers. It wasn't a request. Andre mouthed a desperate no from the counter, shaking his head. The other waiters retreated like waves pulling away from the shore. Naomi's heart pounded, every instinct screaming to walk away. But something in those eyes, dark, fractured, endless, kept her rooted. Slowly, she slid into the seat across from him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Just the faint hum of jazz, the drip of condensation down the glass between them. Then Kato said in heavily accented English, "Why?" Naomi blinked. "Why? What? Why do you speak my language?" She hesitated. The truth felt too fragile to survive in this room full of fear, but she told it anyway. "My best friend in college was Japanese. Her name was Aiko Tanaka. She taught me the basics, then made me promise to keep learning. Said, understanding another's language teaches you how to listen better." Kato's expression didn't change, but his gaze sharpened, slicing through every layer of pretense she didn't know she had. "She died 3 years ago," Naomi continued. "Car accident. I never stopped studying after that. It made me feel like she was still around somehow." The bodyguard shifted slightly, but Kato didn't move. His hand, still resting on the table, clenched once, barely visible, but enough to betray something human. "Kyoto?" he asked quietly. Naomi's eyes widened. "Yes. How did you?" He looked away. "I knew someone once. Same city, same road." For a split second, the mask slipped. Beneath the controlled exterior, there was grief, raw, old, and bleeding through the cracks. Naomi saw it, and something inside her softened. Neither spoke again. Their silence was its own language, one made of ghosts, promises, and the fragile connection between two people who weren't supposed to understand each other. And in that charged quiet, Kato realized something that unsettled him more than any rival ever could. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to him, not at him. The moment ended as sharply as it had begun. Kato pushed back his chair, the leather sighing under his weight. Without looking at her, he reached into his coat, pulled out a folded stack of hundreds, and placed it neatly beside the untouched glass of water. The bills gleamed under the low light, more than Naomi made in 2 months. He stood, smooth, deliberate. One of the bodyguards whispered something in Japanese. Kato didn't answer. He glanced once, just once, at Naomi. And in that glance lived something she couldn't name. Command, curiosity, danger, all tangled into one. He said only 5 words, deep and quiet, like a verdict. "Next time only you." Then he walked away. The doors closed behind him with a hush so final it felt ceremonial. The bodyguards followed, their silhouettes swallowed by the night outside. For a few long seconds, nobody in Hanabira moved. Then sound returned. The scrape of plates, a cough, a half-suppressed whisper. The world exhaled, But Naomi couldn't. She stared at the money on the wolf-shed table, the condensation still dripping from the glass, the empty space he'd left behind like a gravitational pull. Andre appeared beside her, pale as porcelain. "What did he just say to you?" Naomi swallowed. "He wants me to serve him next time." Andre's voice cracked. "Only you?" She nodded. "Jesus Christ, Naomi?" he hissed, running a hand over his face. "Do you even understand what that means? That man doesn't ask. He owns. You're not a waitress to him. You're a detail he's decided to keep." She blinked. "I didn't do anything wrong." Andre leaned closer, his voice low. "People don't survive his attention. I've seen it. The moment you step into his line of sight, you don't get to step out." The words hung between them like smoke. Naomi looked down at the pile of bills again. It wasn't just money. It was a mark, a claim. She told herself it was fine. Just another customer. Another shift. But as she wiped the table, her reflection wavered in the glass, her eyes wide, her breath uneven. Outside, through the narrow window, she caught a flash of headlights. Black car, tinted windows, idling just long enough for her to notice before disappearing into the rain. And for the first time, Naomi realized this wasn't gratitude. It was a summons. She had been chosen or maybe claimed. The phone buzzed at 2:17 a.m. Naomi blinked into the darkness, half asleep, half dreaming of neon light and obsidian eyes. She reached for it, expecting another overdue notice from St. Mary's Hospital. But when the screen lit up, her breath caught mid-chest. Hospital account. Balance paid in full. Her thumb hovered numbly. She blinked once, twice. The number she'd memorized, $52,000, was gone, erased as if it had never existed. Her mother's debt, the weight that had pinned her chest for years, lifted. Then came the message. Unknown number. No emoji. No signature. Just words that felt like a knife wrapped in silk. Payment for translation. KY. Naomi sat up straight, her heart hammering so violently she could hear it in her ears. The apartment was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator and her pulse. She reread the text until the letters blurred. She whispered into the dark. No, you didn't." Her phone slipped from her hands, clattering onto the wooden floor. She grabbed it again, scrolling frantically. No reply option, no return address, just a closed door. Morning found her at Hanabira early, her trembling fingers gripping a paper cup of coffee. Andre spotted her before the first customers arrived. "You look like hell," he said, half concern, half accusation. Naomi handed him the phone wordlessly. He read the message, then froze. "Payment for translation," he repeated, his voice dropping to a whisper. "My God, what does it mean?" Naomi asked, though she already knew. Andre exhaled sharply. "It means you belong to him now." She flinched. "He doesn't buy things, Naomi. He collects people, favors, silence, loyalty. You think it's generosity?" He shook his head. "That's how he owns them. That's how he keeps his empire running. One debt disguised as kindness." Naomi stared at her phone, her throat dry. "I can pay it back." Andre's laugh was short, humorless. "You can't repay a ghost, girl. That transfer came from nowhere, and it's already closed. You try to return it, and you'll just remind him you're still in play." Outside, rain began to fall soft and steady against the glass. Naomi watched each drop trace downward like time itself running out. Her mother's freedom had been bought, but the receipt was written in blood she hadn't spilled yet. Some gifts, she realized, don't save you. They claim you. The first message came long after midnight. Unknown number. "Are you awake?" Naomi stared at the glow of her phone. The room washed in blue light. She hesitated, her thumb hovering. Then she typed back, "I am now." Seconds later, 3 dots pulsed. "KY. Can't sleep. Thoughts too loud." She smirked faintly. "Maybe try counting your regrets instead of sheep." There was a pause long enough for her to think he'd stopped. Then, "KY. Regret is for the weak." She almost laughed, her fingers poised. "So you've never done anything you wish you could undo?" Another pause. "KY. Every day." Maybe I'm just getting weak. The words hit harder than they should have. Outside, the city hummed in its insomnia. Sirens, distant thunder, a street lamp flickering like it couldn't make up its mind. Naomi pulled her knees to her chest. The blanket draped around her shoulders like armor that didn't work anymore. Naomi, why tell me that? KY, because you answered me. The simplicity of it made her throat tighten. They kept talking, slowly at first, then with the rhythm of two people who'd forgotten what silence felt like. He asked what her favorite word in Japanese was. She asked what he missed most about home. KY. The sound of cicadas in Kyoto during summer. You can't replicate it. It's like the earth breathing. Naomi, I miss my friend Aiko. She used to hum the same way when she studied. It annoyed me until she was gone. KY. People always hum before the silence comes. The conversation flowed, jagged and honest. They spoke of loneliness like two surgeons describing a wound they shared but couldn't close. Naomi caught herself waiting for the next vibration of her phone, the next confession. Then it came. KY. Tomorrow night after your shift, I want to show you who I am. She read it twice, her pulse quickening. Her instinct said no, but something deeper, something reckless, whispered yes. Naomi, that sounds dangerous. KY. It is, Naomi. Then why me? KY. Because you looked at me and didn't see the demon. You saw the man beneath it. She stared at the words until they blurred. The sound of rain beginning outside her window. Somewhere across the city, a man who terrified everyone else was typing to her again. KY. Sleep well, Naomi. Tomorrow the masks come off. The black car waited where the alley met the rain. No guards this time, just Kato behind the wheel, his face half-lit by the dashboard glow. Get in, he said softly, like it wasn't a request at all. Naomi hesitated only a heartbeat before the door shut behind her with a quiet click, the kind of sound that means a choice has been made. The city blurred past in streaks of gold and crimson. The car slipped into the industrial district where streetlights flickered like dying stars. Then a sharp turn, a steel gate, a scanner flash. They descended into darkness, the hum of an elevator deepening until her stomach dropped. When the doors opened, the air changed. Cooler, thicker, a faint tang of metal and ozone. The space ahead looked nothing like a restaurant patron's world. Concrete corridors lined with red security lights, men in black suits murmuring into earpieces, cameras that moved like eyes. Naomi's breath caught. What is this place? Kato's answer was quiet, almost reverent. The truth. He led her through glass doors into a vast chamber, half office, half command center. Walls pulsed with digital maps of Los Angeles, territories marked in color. Red for threats, blue for his. Shelves lined with sealed files. A table of weapons so meticulously arranged they looked ceremonial. This is my world, he said. What I built, what I destroyed to keep it. Naomi walked in slow motion, her reflection fractured across screens. On one monitor, she saw her own face entering the building, time-stamped and catalogued. You're recording everything, she whispered. Control demands surveillance, he replied, his voice heavy with something between pride and shame. Every street, every name, every betrayal. My empire breathes because I never sleep. He stopped at a long desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a sleek black laptop. It unlocked beneath his fingerprint, revealing a labyrinth of folders labeled with words that shouldn't exist outside of police files. Disappearances, payments, retaliations. He turned the screen toward her. You asked who I am, he said. This is the answer. Naomi hesitated, her pulse hammering in her ears. Why are you showing me this? Kato's eyes were darker than the room itself. Because before you decide what I am to you, you should know what I've done. He pushed the laptop closer. The glow washed over her hands. Read, he said, then softer, almost pleading. Then decide if you'll stay. The screen glowed like a wound. Naomi scrolled through file after file, each one colder than the last. Coded names, blurred photographs, transactions that read like death sentences. The sound of her breathing filled the room, the only proof she was still human in a place built on ghosts. Then she froze, a name, a face. Deshaun Miller, age 29, African-American, deceased. Cause: accidental overdose. Except the attached photo wasn't a police image. It was surveillance. His body slumped in an alley Naomi had walked through her entire life. Her stomach twisted. "He was from my neighborhood," she whispered. "He used to fix cars on Jefferson." Cato didn't speak. "He didn't overdose," she said, her voice trembling. Your people." His silence was answer enough. Tears burned behind her eyes, but they never fell. "Why are you showing me this?" "So you understand what loving me costs," he said. Naomi slammed the laptop shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "You think this is love? This is ruin." "Maybe," Cato said quietly, "but it's mine to confess." She turned to leave but stopped when she saw the blood. A thin red line tracing from his sleeve down to his wrist. "You're hurt." "It's nothing." She didn't believe him. She crossed the room, pulled a napkin from her pocket, and pressed it gently to the wound. The scent of gun oil and citrus soap filled the space between them. Cato didn't move, didn't breathe. Naomi's fingers trembled, brushing his skin. "You think pain makes you untouchable," she whispered. "But it just makes you lonely." He caught her wrist, not hard, but enough to make her meet his eyes. "And you," he murmured, "make me forget why I built these walls." The air between them broke. The kiss wasn't planned, wasn't soft. It was fire meeting fire, rage and tenderness colliding in the only language they both understood. Survival. Then a phone lit up on the table, vibrating violently. One of the screens turned red. Alerts flashed across the map. Takahashi family breach. Dock 14, East District. Cato's face hardened. Every trace of warmth collapsing behind armor. "They've declared war." Naomi stepped back, breathless. "What are you going to do?" He picked up his gun, chambering around with terrifying calm. "What I've always done," he said. "End it." And just like that, the man she'd kissed vanished into the shadow of the demon once more. The car door locked with a metallic click that sounded too much like finality. Naomi looked up. Steel walls, no windows, a single bulb humming above. The safe house wasn't a home. It was a bunker built for ghosts. Cato stood at the threshold, rain streaking down his face. "You'll stay here until I say otherwise." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." She started to protest, but he cut her off. "No calls, no messages. No one can know you're alive." The words hit like a verdict. She wanted to ask why, but his eyes, dark, unwavering, told her not to. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the quiet heat radiating off him. "Since you spoke to me," he said, his voice low, "you became visible, and visible people don't survive my world." Then he left. The door shut, the lock turned, and silence swallowed her. Time warped. The room had no clock, but Naomi learned to count hours by the sound of her own heartbeat. She found a notepad on the table, blank government issue, and started writing to stay sane. Grocery lists, memories, things she'd say to her mother if she could, things she'd say to him. Her phone sat on the nightstand, powered off, sealed in a metal box Cato had left behind. But sometimes, late at night, she'd take it out just to stare at the black screen, her thumb hovering over the button like a prayer. In the corner, a small TV flickered with static, looping surveillance feeds she didn't recognize. Ports, warehouses, the underbelly of Los Angeles. Each night the same. Each night she hoped one of those frames would show him walking back toward her. The fourth night, she dreamed of him standing in the rain again, his hand reaching through glass, his voice a whisper, "You're safer invisible." She woke up gasping, tears slicking her palms. The silence around her felt alive, breathing, watching. Then the sound. Her phone lit up, vibrating hard enough to rattle the table. One message. "KY. It's over. We won." Her chest tightened. Relief hit first, bright, disorienting, followed by fear, because victory in his world never came clean. Naomi looked at the door, half expecting it to open, half afraid it would. She whispered into the emptiness, "What did it cost you this time?" The silence didn't answer, but somewhere beyond the concrete and cameras, she could almost hear the faint echo of gunfire fading into the night. The night smelled of rust and rain. Cato didn't speak as he drove, the city lights sliding over his face in fractured flashes. Red, amber, white. Naomi sat beside him, silent, watching his knuckles tighten against the wheel with every mile. They stopped at an abandoned dockyard where the air tasted of salt and secrets. "This is where it happened," he said, stepping into the dim warehouse light. "My father died right there." The single bulb above them swung gently, painting shadows that swayed across cracked concrete. Naomi followed his gaze to a dark stain on the floor, old but not forgotten. Cato's voice was low, stripped of all the armor she'd come to know. "He was shot for refusing to pay tribute. I was 16. I came here after and swore I'd never be powerless again." He stared at the stain as if it still whispered. "So I built walls, money, fear, blood. Every piece of power I took was just another brick between me and the world." He turned toward her, his eyes wet but steady. "The walls kept me alive, but the bridge." He faltered, then smiled faintly. "The bridge made me human again." Naomi's breath caught. "And the bridge is you," he said simply. For a moment, neither moved. The hum of the bulb was the only sound, like a heartbeat suspended in the air. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small silver ring. It was simple and unpolished, the kind of item that held significance rather than monetary value. "I have built empires and buried enemies," Cato said softly, "but I've never built a life. Not a real one. You saw me, Naomi. The man, not the mask. So I'm asking." His voice cracked with emotion. "Stay with me." Naomi's eyes shone with disbelief, with grief, and with something that felt dangerously close to love. She looked at the ring, then back at him, her expression a mix of shock and consideration. "You're asking me to stand beside a man the world fears?" she questioned, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm asking you to stand beside the man who finally fears himself," he replied, his gaze meeting hers with unwavering honesty. She stepped forward, her movements deliberate, and placed her hand over his. The metal of the ring was cold against her skin, and she felt his hand trembling beneath hers. "I'll stay," she whispered, her voice filled with a newfound resolve. "But only if you change your world." For the first time, Cato's composure completely shattered. His shoulders trembled, and his eyes closed tightly as he absorbed the weight of her words. He didn't answer verbally. He only nodded, his head moving in a solemn gesture like a man signing a vow that could never be taken back, a promise etched in stone. Outside, thunder rolled across the bay, its sound echoing through the city. It wasn't a warning, but a witness, a celestial acknowledgement of the momentous occasion. The transformation began subtly, like a quiet rebellion against his past. Contracts were signed in the light of day instead of the shadows of night. Warehouses were converted into distribution centers, and offshore accounts were rebranded as legitimate charities. Kaido Yamazaki was systematically dismantling his empire, piece by painstaking piece. He wasn't using fire and destruction, but rather embracing redemption as his guiding principle. Naomi watched it all unfold before her eyes, like someone witnessing a violent storm slowly transition into a breathtaking sunrise. She had opened a small classroom in South Central, a haven she called the Bridge Project, where children from broken homes could learn languages for free: English, Japanese, Spanish. The walls of the classroom held the comforting scent of chalk and the vibrant aroma of hope. When she taught them the word mirai, meaning future, she couldn't help but think of him and the future they were building together. But even the cleanest hands still carried the lingering presence of ghosts, remnants of the past that refused to be fully erased. And one of those ghosts had a name: Jiro, Kaido's most loyal lieutenant. Or so Kaido had once believed. It started with subtle whispers, hushed conversations that seemed to fade away as she approached. Then, Strange men began watching the building, their presence unsettling and intrusive. Contracts mysteriously disappeared, vanishing without a trace. Then came the morning knock that Naomi would never be able to forget, the sound forever etched in her memory. 2 agents in black suits stood at her door, their faces stern and unyielding. One of them flashed a silver badge, its glint reflecting the cold reality of the situation. "Agent Monroe, FBI," he announced, his voice devoid of warmth. Hanna-Barbera's dining room, once filled with the soothing sounds of soft jazz, now echoed with the sterile chill of an interrogation room. Naomi sat across from Monroe, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her jaw set with unwavering determination. "We know who he is," Monroe said, his voice flat and accusatory as he slid a stack of photos across the table, the images landing with a soft thud. The photos showed Kaido shaking hands with city officials, appearing in public with an air of legitimacy. There were photos of Kaido outside her apartment, seemingly watching over her. There was even a photo of Kaido walking beside her, their connection undeniable. "What we need is confirmation," Monroe continued, his gaze piercing. "One sentence from you could end this, could bring it all crashing down." Naomi stared at the photos, her heart aching with a mixture of fear and defiance. She then looked directly at the agent, her eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "And what?" she asked softly, her voice barely audible. "What do you gain by destroying the illusion that he's clean, that he's trying to make amends?" She exhaled slowly, trying to maintain her composure. "You don't need me for that." Monroe leaned in closer, his expression condescending. "Don't make the mistake every woman makes around men like him, thinking you're the one he'll change for," he warned, his voice dripping with cynicism. Naomi met his gaze without flinching, her eyes unwavering. "He already did," she stated with conviction, her voice resonating with unwavering belief. Hours later, she walked out free, leaving the interrogation room behind. No charges were filed, and she offered no confession. Outside the glass doors, the sun was setting over Los Angeles, painting the sky in hues of orange and red, as if the city itself couldn't decide whether to burn or heal, whether to embrace destruction or seek redemption. Inside, Monroe threw the file onto his desk in frustration, the file empty of any incriminating evidence. Jiro's testimony had vanished from the record, completely and inexplicably. There were no witnesses, no data trail, nothing to connect Kaido to his past. Someone had erased everything overnight, a digital ghost wiping away the evidence of his former life. Meanwhile, across the city, Kaido stood on a rooftop, the wind tearing through his coat, a stark reminder of the forces he was battling. He had traded his power for peace, for a chance at a different life. And peace, he was slowly learning, was the most dangerous currency of all, a fragile and elusive commodity. Naomi's phone buzzed, signaling a new message. It was unsigned, but the message was unmistakable, the voice clear in her mind. "They can't touch us now, but one of us won't survive this clean," the message warned, its words chilling her to the bone. The chapel was hidden away, nestled behind paper lanterns and jasmine vines, located somewhere between Little Tokyo and South Central. It was a place that didn't exist on maps, a sanctuary found only through whispered promises and shared hopes. The guests were few, only those who truly mattered. There were no cameras, no press, and no witnesses who didn't already owe their lives to the couple standing beneath the soft flicker of a single lantern, their love a beacon in the darkness. Naomi wore ivory silk, the simple fabric radiant against her dark skin, her hair adorned with a single white camellia, Kaido's mother's favorite flower, a symbol of remembrance and enduring love. He stood opposite her in a black hakama, the traditional attire restrained and elegant. Yet, despite his outward composure, his hands trembled slightly, betraying the emotions that surged within him, the realization that he had just discovered what it truly meant to be alive. The music was unlike anything either world had ever heard before. The haunting melodies of a shamisen strings intertwined with the soulful harmonies of soft gospel humming, a fusion of cultures and traditions. East met West, not in conflict, but in a harmonious blend of mercy and understanding. The officiant spoke little, allowing the couple to express their love in their own words. They had written their own vows, promises born from their shared experiences and unwavering commitment. Kaido began first, his English still clipped and imperfect, a testament to his past, but honest and heartfelt. "When I met you, I was stone," he confessed, his voice filled with emotion. "You turned my fear into a bridge and crossed it without looking back, showing me the way forward." He paused, his eyes glinting with quiet vulnerability. "You taught me the language of forgiveness, and it is harder than war, a battle fought within myself." Naomi smiled, her voice low and steady, each syllable soaked in grace and unwavering love. "When I met you, I saw a man everyone called a demon," she began, her gaze locking with his. "But demons don't bleed for the world they built," she declared with conviction. "Men do. You showed me that even in darkness, there are doors if you listen hard enough, opportunities for change and redemption." A hush fell over the small chapel, a moment of profound silence as two worlds, divided by history, skin color, and scars, leaned toward each other, drawn together by an invisible force. Breath by breath, they moved closer until they were no longer separate, their hearts beating in unison. Kaido lifted her hand, his touch gentle and reverent. The ring, the same unpolished silver ring from the dockyard, gleamed on her finger like a memory redeemed, a symbol of their shared journey. "Naomi Ellis," he whispered, his voice filled with adoration. "My bridge, my home, my salvation." She laughed softly through her tears, her heart overflowing with love. "And you, Kaido Yamazaki, my lesson in chaos, my unexpected miracle." They kissed, not with the fire of their initial attraction, but with a profound sense of peace and understanding. It was a kiss that sealed their vows, a promise of enduring love and unwavering support. Outside, rain began to fall again, soft and rhythmic, as if the city itself was exhaling, releasing its collective burdens and embracing the promise of a new beginning. Behind them, two families stood together, united in their love for the couple. Japanese elders stood beside black relatives, their presence a testament to the breaking down of barriers. They were awkward but smiling, unsure of how to blend their customs, yet somehow making it work, their shared love transcending cultural differences. As they turned to walk down the narrow aisle, Naomi leaned close to Kaido and teased, "Your accent's still bad." Her words playful and affectionate. Kaido grinned, his expression rare and unguarded. "Then keep teaching me," he replied, his eyes sparkling with love and gratitude. The guests laughed, the music swelled, and for a fleeting, perfect moment, the past and the future bowed to each other under one roof, united by one promise and one love. By spring, Hanabira had stopped being just a restaurant and had transformed into a borderless room, a sanctuary for the community. On weeknights, the booths were filled with dock workers, nurses, barbers, bankers, and teenagers who smelled like after-school gyms, their laughter and chatter filling the space. On Sundays, the sushi counter was replaced by a folding table covered with paper, markers, and cheap dictionaries, transforming into a makeshift classroom. Naomi called it the bridge, a place where she taught languages for free, offering a lifeline to those who needed it most. Kids arrived with homework and questions, eager to learn and improve their lives. Grandparents came to practice greetings for customers, hoping to bridge the cultural gap. Line cooks from the taco stand next door tried their hand at hiragana between orders, their dedication inspiring. She started every class with the same ritual, a tradition that had become a cornerstone of the bridge. "Language is a promise," she said, her voice filled with passion. "It says, I'll meet you halfway, a willingness to connect and understand." Then, she chalked big, generous characters across a portable board, writing words of love and hope. Ai, love, kokoro, heart, mizu, water, letting each stroke hang long enough for even the shyest voice to follow, encouraging participation and building confidence. The room answered in many accents, a vibrant tapestry of voices, none of them wrong, all of them valued. Laughter traveled faster than grammar, creating a warm and welcoming atmosphere. Kaido rarely entered through the front, preferring to remain in the background. He took the side hallway, pausing at the threshold, like a man listening to the ocean from across a wall, drawn to the energy but hesitant to intrude. He chose the last chair, his hands folded neatly in his lap, his eyes soft in a way that only Naomi ever saw, a vulnerability hidden beneath his stoic exterior. There were no bodyguards, no orders, no displays of power. Sometimes he practiced syllables under his breath, a mountain teaching itself to move, learning to express himself in a new way. He never interrupted, respecting the space and the people who filled it. The city had demanded obedience, but this room asked for attention, for genuine engagement and understanding. One evening, she told them a story, a tale woven with universal themes of love, loss, and redemption. She didn't use names, only details that rang like bells, resonating with the listeners on a deeper level. A crowded dining room, a place of community and connection. A man who spoke and wasn't heard, his voice lost in the noise. A waitress who understood and wasn't supposed to, her empathy a silent act of rebellion. I learned that courage is sometimes a small sentence spoken clearly, she said, her voice filled with conviction. Writing, "O Mizu Dao" on the board, a simple phrase that carried profound meaning. And that respect begins where fear gets quiet, where we choose to listen instead of judge. Hands shot up, eager to share their own experiences and insights. A seventh grader asked whether words could stop a fight, his question sparking a lively discussion. A grandmother admitted that she had apologized to a shopkeeper she once avoided, her act of humility inspiring others. A boy from Watts recited his first self-introduction in Japanese, stumbled, blushed, tried again, and finished to applause that sounded like sunlight on metal, a triumphant moment of self-discovery. Kaido watched Naomi watch them, pride flickering across her face like candlelight, illuminating her beauty and strength. He thought of the ledger he'd closed, the accounts wiped clean, and the doors he'd opened, creating new opportunities for others. He reflected on how power had once meant walls, isolation, and control, and how it now meant chairs, connection, and community. After class, he stacked dictionaries, slow and careful, as if precision could translate into mercy, as if his actions could somehow atone for his past. Before they left, Naomi taught one last phrase, a final lesson for the night. "Kikamasu," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "I'm listening. I'm here. I'm present." She had the class repeat it to the person beside them, looking them in the eye, creating a moment of genuine connection. The words felt simple, then necessary, then true, resonating with the desire to be heard and understood. Outside, the neighborhood breathed easier, the air lighter and filled with hope. Inside, the bridge held, a testament to the power of connection. And in the back row, the man who used to own silence learned to love the sound of other people finding their voices, discovering their strength, and sharing their stories. Hanabira closed late that night, the doors finally shutting after a long day of service. The last child's laughter had faded down the street, leaving a sense of quiet contentment. The chalkboards were wiped clean, erasing the day's lessons, but the smell of soy and jasmine still hung in the air, a lingering reminder of the community that had gathered there. Naomi moved through the empty room slowly, her fingers trailing over the tables, each scratch and stain a note in the song they had written together, a melody of hope, resilience, and love. Outside the window, Los Angeles shimmered in 1,000 restless lights, a city that never slept, but tonight it felt as if it was watching over them, protecting them from the shadows. She sat by the counter, the glow from her phone painting her face in soft gold, illuminating her features. One new message arrived, no name attached, just the same familiar signature that had once terrified her, sending shivers down her spine, then taught her how to breathe again, offering solace and hope. "Kai, thank you for making me human." The message read, its words simple yet profound. Her heart tightened, not from fear, but from recognition, a wave of emotion washing over her. Every scar, every silence, Every word they had once thrown like knives. All of it had led here, to the simple sentence that weighed more than empires, a testament to their transformative journey. Naomi smiled through tears, her thumbs trembling over the screen as she prepared to respond. She typed slowly, carefully, as if each letter carried light, illuminating the darkness. "Naomi, you already were," she wrote, her words heartfelt and sincere. "You just needed someone to remind you, to see the beauty and strength within you." Then, switching to Japanese, the language that had once built walls and now built bridges, she added, "Naomi Anatawa Muning Data. Naomi, you were always shining." The reply came minutes later, soft as breath, a whisper of affection. "Kai, still teaching me, I see." The message read, his gratitude evident in his words. She laughed quietly, her heart overflowing with love. "Always," she replied, her promise unwavering. The door opened without sound, as if by magic, revealing his presence. Kaido stood there, half shadow, half miracle, his figure silhouetted against the darkness. Rain caught in his hair, glistening like stars. He spoke no words, his silence filled with meaning, just the quiet certainty of a man who no longer needed to speak to be understood, his eyes conveying a depth of emotion. Naomi rose, crossed the floor, and reached for his hand, her movements filled with purpose. His fingers were cold from the night, but hers were warm from the world she'd chosen to build, a world of hope, community, and love. When they met, the silence between them wasn't emptiness, but rather a language, the oldest kind, a connection that transcended words. Through the window, a soft wind stirred the paper lanterns, causing them to sway gently, whispering in both English and Japanese, a promise written in light. Naomi leaned her head against his shoulder, her voice soft and filled with love. "Half to him, half to the city beyond," she whispered, her words carrying a profound message. The strongest language needs no words, only an open door, a willingness to connect and understand. Outside, the lights of Los Angeles blinked once, as if the whole city had just understood, acknowledging the power of their love and the transformative impact of their journey.